Today there's a Craftsman 5-horse tiller here. This is Sears. It's usually a model number somewhere. There we are. A little hard to tell what it is, which is going to be unfortunate because it's going to be a little hard to figure out what that is. Anyway, so I got it exactly how you're seeing it, except there was a towel covering the intake, and that's it. What you're seeing is how I got it. So it needs a couple things: a bath, and we need to figure out what's wrong. The only thing I looked at was the oil, and that's because when I pulled on it, it's a little no compression-y. Yeah, that doesn't smell good at all. It's a little dark, but let's just say it's not pretty. I don't know if there's any rust though. I'll have to look at that later. But anyway, so there's a big difference between, I don't want to say drag, but like if it's hard to pull over, maybe the belt's engaged, maybe, you know, it's a chipper and just has a big heavy piece on the end, you know. There's a big difference between heavy to pull and hard to pull and no compression. You'll feel like a good section of it not you'll just feel it. We'll just put it that way. You'll feel like one hard area, and that's, I know, get it, but I don't feel that here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little marble down a plug hole, give it a couple pulls, and see if that helps our situation here. One of the good parts about these flatheads is you can take the plug out and see if one of the valves is not seating, well, moving. It's hard to tell if it's not seating. Exhaust valve is right about here, intake is right about here. I looked in there with the flashlight and I noticed the intake is not shutting. So this is a 1/4 inch extension. Let's see if we can tap it down. Might not be able to. There we go. Shoot a little oil down there and let's try again. Like I said, I can see it, so I try to shoot some underneath the valve. Let's try this again. If not, we're going to have to take the head off. So right now, the exhaust valve is open. And nothing. We're going to take off the head. So there's this screw right here, 2 on the side. The cover's going to come off, and then we'll take off each one of these. It's a 1/2 inch, and then the head should just come off, so I'll bring it back once it's off. Let's see here. It's going. sorry, Steve. It's stuck in the other way now. So there we go. Is this the right way? Probably not. Now, I want to point out that that's probably not the best way of doing it. It should be taking it out. But it was just a lot. I did want to check the condition of the engine first. The piston looks fine though. I cleaned it up a little bit. This now seems to be working good. The piston goes up and down by itself. And we're good to go. Put the head on, we'll put a little fuel down and see what happens. Kind of want to go over what just happened. So over time, old fuel, most likely, water, maybe there was no air filter on it, will go down the throat of the carburetor and will gum up the valve. Now, when that happens, it gets stuck, it won't go up and down. That's why we had no compression. Now, well, there's no plug, but now I feel like there probably would be. It seems like it's sealing pretty good. The exhaust had no issues, so I feel like it's going to be fairly decent. The correct way of doing that, like I said, that was just for me to see if this is actually worth working on. Take off the muffler, take off the tank, open up the valve cover, take out the valve, take off the spring, take out the valve, clean it, clean the clean everything really. Get it nice and dry and clean. Lubricate it up, some oil, lubrication, not lubrication, assembly lube, there we go. Whatever you want to do, lube it up, put it back together, and that's how it should be. Probably should lap it. We'll do all that. I just want to say this is a good motor. So this is a good way to check your motor. If it's been only like a year and somehow there's just a little bit of fuel that got stuck, to be honest, it's probably okay to do this because fuel is going to be rushing over it anyway when you're using it, and fuel just kind of cleans it. Have you ever heard of those direct injection engines that have a whole bunch of carbon buildup on the intake because it's directly injecting into the cylinder because fuel isn't going into the behind the valve? This does, so it's going to clean it. Let's put a little starting fluid and see what happens. I also cleaned the clutch a little bit, mainly because when I took the cover off to spin the flywheel, the ball bearings fell out, so I had a good opportunity to clean it. Kind of be expected. It's bridged over, but with water. I think there might be water in the carb. I see the exhaust valve open. try that again. Let's try it again. Well, as you can see, it runs. It runs pretty good too. Like I said, it does have oil. So I think we're gonna look at the carb, see what's going on there. You know, if you're one of those people that swears by that concoction or something different, you know, let me know what I did wrong. Maybe I just didn't do it right. But I think this is going to be showing why a good actual cleaning is always a better idea. Now, someone also had mentioned on the same post that you can take penetrating oil. I heard that one before. I just don't think it's a good idea. And shove it down the emulsion tube, I believe it was. I was always told just to spray everywhere, but I don't know. That's like backyard mechanics to extreme. It's like complete and total lack of motivation for working. Just spray it with PB Blaster, it'll work. Or hey, go to AutoZone and spend like $8 on a container. It'll make your engine run better. Wanna know what else makes your engine run better? Clean carburetor. Routine maintenance. You know, those crazy things. So when I took the cover off, there was a insanely large spider that was not too happy with me. So I'm keeping my eyes out for one. I sucked him up in the vacuum, but I don't know if his friend is around here. Rototillers usually don't experience a whole lot of problems with, you know, use. Their problems are usually sitting, hence the reason why the valve was stuck. It was sitting for too long. At least that would be my assumption of why that happened. It's probably sitting outside too long, to be honest. So unless you live in a very warm area or you rototill multiple times a year, probably only using it once or twice, maybe a year. That, you know, it isn't all that much. We're gonna need a bigger screwdriver for that one. Of course, I know this guy who completely converted his backyard into a garden. And he uses his quite a bit, so I guess there are those exceptions. But that's why it's an exception and not the rule. So there's another one of those, except it's down here. That's a little bit more of a pain. I'm going to get a 3/8 wrench and take that one off. Now that's off. Well, disconnected, except for maybe a couple more thread. Oh, I don't. Okay. Just pry this up a little bit. We should be good to go. Okay. Well, let's take this to the carb station. You thought the other Briggs and Stratton carbs were easy? This one's even easier. Take off this gasket, assuming we can. If not, we'll just have to replace it. Might not be a bad idea to replace it anyway. I mean, it's used. Don't know what that is. That's someone's attempt at sealing something. Sealing what? Okay. So we're gonna take this out. Oh my god. That is in there. Okay. Well, moving forward, we will put in the cleaner. Hopefully that will help loosen that up. I just got done having a conversation with a buddy of mine. He's upset that his truck, after he went to have a service done about a week ago, all of a sudden started making a noise, and he's pretty sure it's a bearing. Not a bearing. It's escaping me. And he's 99% sure it was the shop that did it. I asked him, what did the shop do? And say, well, he serviced the air conditioner because it's springtime. And you want to make sure the air conditioner was up and ready to be used. So I told him, do you think that's a little weird? That's something in the rear end of your truck. It was just nowhere near the front end of your truck. It's having a problem, and you think it was a service tech that worked on your air conditioner? He said, nope. I'm pretty sure it was just the time. So he's not agreeing with that. So he's like, well, you also they can't prove that they didn't do it. And I tried to explain to him, that's pretty impossible. Starting to worry if I was going to break it. Pretty impossible. I did break it. Okay. Huh? That's a jet. Told him that's a pretty impossible standard. He would not agree. I personally think it is. Whoa. So what do we have here? I have this one. Keeping it for a while now. has that hole, but it has two. You know what? I think this is almost the exact same. We're just gonna run with this one. So we're gonna put it on there. Pin's the same. I'll get a new gasket. And we'll just use a brand new one. I cleaned out this little cavity. So what ends up happening is the big pickup tube goes down here. Small pickup tube goes in here. The big pickup tube picks up fuel and puts it into this little cavity, and then the main jet takes it from this point. And once it overflows, see this little cutoff? It overflows back into the tank. So that just keeps on moving fuel. That's why you have a pump. That's the diaphragm that we usually have to replace in these. Well, not now. But you want to make sure that's clean. It's pretty clean in there. I'm not too worried. I dried it out. We should be good to go. I'm going to install it and then bring you back. Okay, got it all done. Now I'm going to use the starting fluid because, like I said, you have to fill that little cavity. I don't feel like pulling on it that much. Anyway, so put it on. There's oil. The plug is good. We might have a blown head gasket. When I took it off, I didn't really replace it. So I will probably need a new head gasket. I know that. And valve cleaning at the very least. But let's see what happens. When the screws on the side was loose. Let me tighten that up. Well, the good news or bad news? The good news is the reason why that screw is loose because it's also broken. I don't know how that happened. I don't have another one, so I'm just gonna have to order one. So I'm gonna order one, bring it back once this is done. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long. So we're at the point where I got the new carb in and I'm gonna test it out. There's good news and bad news. Actually, there's good, bad, and good news. The good news is the mechanism down there, it's a little hard to see, but that slides and puts tension on. The governor is not frozen. In fact, it's actually very movable. The bad news is the handle for the throttle was broken. The bad news on that one too is even the cable was frozen. So even if you could manage to now rip apart the skin on your fingers, moving the broken handle, you still couldn't move it without like a hammer. And then it's plastic, it's gonna break anyway. The good news is I found one of these. The bad news, I guess, part of this is bad, is I couldn't find the original one. The model number on this is too far gone. I can't read it. I looked it up and nothing's really too concrete. There is a couple of them on there. I found one that I'm pretty sure would work because it's this plastic piece that just screwed in place. But it was $49, I want to say. And I found it on eBay and they said it wouldn't ship for like a week. And it's just a throttle. This is a $120 rototiller. I'm not going to spend that much money on it. So I found this one. It's generic. It's the same thing. The cable's the same. It's just the bracket's going to be different. I'm going to drill and screw this into, put some nuts in there, bolts, all that. Put it into place. I thought about welding it, but it's just not worth welding it. So I'm just going to drill it, put them in there, and then I will bring you back once it's done. Basically, what we're doing is we're just going to take the end and it just goes on this little slide. Like I said, it's really hard to see, but that slide controls the throttle. At that point, you figure out which one you want it to be, high and low, and then you just set it at that point with this, oops, little bracket. So I'm going to do that, and I'll bring you back. That cable was actually a lot harder than I thought, but it's on, it's ready to go. Let's take a look at it. Just drilled it in. Moves good. So we don't have to worry about it coming off. The only thing that was kind of a problem was the bracket kept slipping, so I am having to cut the rubber sheathing off and shorten the other side so it will just sink down more and give it more pressure. New carb. Oil is in there. It's not the greatest, but it's in there. We'll let it run and then we'll change it. Other than that, we don't have an air filter. I have the housing and I have a filter. I just didn't put it on in case I need to take the carb off again. Other than that, we might need starting fluid. I don't know, because it is a new carb. It might need to flow through a little bit, but there was fuel in the galley, in the tank, or the fuel galley, so may not. Let's give it a try. Whoops. We might need a little more RPM than that. Let's try this again. So for whatever reason, I think the low might be needing to be adjusted, so I need to adjust the cable. I also think I need to drill out the jet a little bit, but I'm going to do that, bring it back. So before I do anything, I'm going to give it a pull. I didn't adjust the cable or anything, but I want to give it a pull and see if the surging kind of goes away with this, with the filter actually on there. Filter adds a little bit more drag and less air, and the fuel mixture just a little bit different. So let's see if that fixes our lean problem. it definitely helped out a lot. So there is a jet. Let's see if I can show you. So that brass jet in there, that's a non-adjustable one, but we're going to adjust it by drilling out just a little bit. See if that doesn't help our problem here. Drilled out the jet. Now that's the pilot jet, or the idle jet, or part of the idle circuit, whatever someone wants to call it. But if you heard it, it was mainly surging under idle. Once it got up to speed, especially under load, it wasn't too bad at all. So I have a feeling that a lot of what we're seeing is just a pilot issue. When a carburetor is sucking fuel up, when it's on idle, it will only use the pilot jet. If it's on full throttle, it's going to be using both the pilot and the main. But the main's going to be supplying the main portion of the fuel, but the pilot will still provide some. Not a lot, but some. Let's say 10%. Well, if your pilot jet is kind of lean, let's say 3/4 of where it should be, because I took out to the next size. Maybe I have to do one more, I don't know. But if it's running lean, then not only is your idle going to be lean, but your full throttle is going to be lean. That's going to be bad for both cases. I put a new spark plug in there. After this, the head gasket, I'm told, should be arriving any moment, so I'll put a new head gasket in there. We'll let it run, change the oil, and we should be good. The belt seems fine. I think the blades had a little bit of gunk on them when it first turned on. It didn't want to start, but now it's running good. Let's give it a try. Oh, I need to change the my mind is went blank. The cable. Let me adjust that real quick. Give that a try. Still have to adjust it. I'm not sure why it's not killing it, but we're at least getting somewhere. Let me try this again. Definitely chugs along. And it turns off without the need of the choke. Let's try this again. Like 10 RPM. Okay, more than that. That was just because it was so slow. But I think we're good now. It's a little lean, not much, but that's only when there's no load. Really, with it having a load and running fine, I'm okay with that. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm going to let it run outside a little bit, just on the idle for about 10 minutes, just to make sure. Then I'm going to put the new head gasket in. Watch that video. It's going to be a how-to. But other than that, this should be done. I'm just going to change the oil after I let it run. Gasket, pressure wash it. I think we should be good to go. New cable. It's generic. As you can tell, it's very long. I had to wrap it around and it looks pretty stupid, but You know, do you want to spend... Oh, here we go. Do you want to spend like 50 or 40 something dollars on this? I don't. And the one I found looked a lot like it, but it didn't necessarily... I couldn't guarantee it. Let's just put it that way. Without it being a guarantee, I don't want to spend like 14 bucks when I know I can just make a $12 one work without any problem. So I'd rather have that any day of the week. Other than that, I think we're set. Put a thumbs up if you liked it. Put a comment. Leave a question below. Definitely subscribe. Catch me in the next video. Have a good night.